Sitting here at CypherCon with Chris Merkel. Chris, what do you do for a living?
Sure, I'm the Senior Director of Cyber Defense at Northwestern Mutual. So everything counter-threat related is what's on my plate. So we're finding the bad guys, we're punching them in the face.
Nice. Punch him in the face. I like that. How long have you been coming to CypherCon?
I've been at CypherCon since CypherCon 2. The only reason I wasn't at 1 is because I'd previously planned to be at Disney World with my family. So I missed out on the Safe House experience, but I've been to them ever since.
Nice. Yeah, you can't tell a family no on Disney World. So.
No, I don't. As a father or parent, I don't recommend it.
Yeah. So, what do you do here at CypherCon?
So here at CypherCon, I've got some responsibilities. First and foremost, Northwestern Mutual is the sponsor of CypherCon. We believe strongly in supporting the cybersecurity and the information security community here in Milwaukee. We do that in a lot of ways: outreach, STEM events, things like that. But simply showing up and talking to people, having meaningful conversations is important to us.
Yeah.
Beyond that, a lot of my hobbies outside of work, but within the industry, really revolve around career development. So I help run our career ward. We're just wrapping up here in the next hour or two. We'll have had 50 different career conversations with people who want to do resume reviews, mock interviews, and things like that. So I've got a dedicated group of volunteers representing hiring managers, senior engineers, folks like that are giving career advice in what is right now a pretty rough market.
Yeah. Oh, that's so awesome because CypherCon has a lot of students that come here too that are local. So that is a free resource that is phenomenal, right?
Yeah.
Like, when are you going to get to be in front of these hiring managers and say, like, these are the things, what are you looking for? Coach me, how you do all those different things. So if I was a student or even just looking to progress my career or better my professional resume or presence, you would go to the career hacking ward, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
In what type of are you just sitting down with resumes, reviewing resumes? Like, how does it work?
Yeah. So we really break it down into first and foremost, someone in conversation. We're there to support that person that's interested in furthering the career no matter what they're doing. Okay. So some of it is career advice. So within career advice, we typically break that into 3 categories. Or we have 3 types of people interested in that advice. We have people that are new to career. So again, high school, college students, things like that. We have people that want to transition into cybersecurity. Maybe they already have a job in tech. They want to make the jump into cyber. So we give them practical tips on how to do that. And then we have people that just want to grow in career. They're already in security. Maybe they want to find themselves in a really specific niche that they're interested in, or just a newer, different type of work, or advancement. Working way up to be a senior individual contributor or a people leader.
What would be the single piece of advice you would give to, say, a college student that's gone through maybe cybersecurity education? They're like looking to get to the real world.
Yeah, the first thing I would say right now in our current job market is don't expect to land your dream cybersecurity job. What goes along with that is the fact that a lot of programs within colleges and boot camps and things like that have basically boiled cybersecurity down to SOC jobs and red team jobs. And there's so much more to cyber than that. So we have a lot of people who think to themselves, I just got out of college, now I'm going to be a red teamer.
Yes.
Right? And as somebody who employs red teamers, you understand that it's a combination of skill set and mindset, right? Yep. You got to bring both to the table. They might have the mindset, they may not have the skill set yet. And so my biggest piece of advice is broaden your horizons in terms of your tech skill set. Go get a job working on a help desk. Go work on certifications, volunteer, contribute, be seen. Because right now in our current job market, there's a ton of competition for those entry-level jobs.
Now, what was your first job in IT?
So my first job in IT was repairing computers in a small computer repair store. And it happened because my family had a business. That business was going under as the first wave of big box retailers came out. And I've been doing a lot of tech support for family, friends, things like that. $20 here, $20 there. And the computer shop that I always hung out at, they were building white box PCs as fast as they could. And so I called them and I said, hey, I don't think I can work in the family business anymore. 3 weeks before Christmas, and they said, can you start tomorrow? And yeah, I started building PCs at 17 years old. Shucking video cards and RAM and things like that into cases and cutting myself on the crappy aluminum edges. And I haven't looked back.
Yeah, and I asked that question because I'm similar as well. Like I was help desk.
Yeah, right.
For DSL and dial-up modems. You know, and helping people literally plug in cables and things like that. So I just asked that question because I knew that your first job was not going to be your dream job. Mine wasn't either, and so it's such sage advice to give to set the expectations and to grow, because you also got to figure out what you want to do.
Yeah.
Like you might think you want to be on a red team, but you actually get more enjoyment out of being a blue team, right, or working in a SOC. But like you got to kind of get involved more to figure that out in the early years.
And there's parallels between the job market I was in 25 years ago and the job market that we find today. 25 years ago, we had a .com boom. So I remember a specific moment where I was wandering across the campus at UW-Milwaukee, and a couple of my buddies came up to me, and they said, "We just came from the bursar's office. We're dropping out of college." And I said, "Wow, what are you doing?" And they're like, "We got programming jobs." And I was like, "Dang, who for?" And they rattled off the company. They don't exist anymore. That's the .com part of it. And I said, "Well, what are you doing?" And they're like, "I don't know, programming." But they've got a stock beer fridge and foosball and beanbag chairs and all this kind of stuff, right? And so in cybersecurity, we had that same kind of job boom happen, and now we're seeing like a contraction going on, right? So from a job market perspective, we're entering the bust cycle of what you might call the cybersecurity job hype cycle.
Nice. And shifting gears just a little bit, because we were talking earlier, and from a SOC perspective, you mentioned that you were doing some detection as code work.
Yeah. Which
I was like, all right, Chris, I got like 1,000 questions on this because this sounds really cool. But explain that. What is that?
Okay, so we'll start out with a problem statement. So let's say you're responsible for your SIM, and you're in there and you're trying to write detections to find abnormal or malicious activity in your environment. Are you making changes directly in prod every time you change a rule?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, like I'm not going to name names, but like I only know of one SIM vendor that allows me to actually update my code through an API call, okay? And it was only because they were browbeaten into that feature by some of their largest customers, okay? And the dirty little secret that anybody that does detection work hopes an auditor never asks is, can I see the change history for this detection? When you set that threshold on unauthorized logons from 10 to 20, show me when that change happened, and more importantly, why did that change happen? Why did you do that? Why did you tune that rule? Did you just tune it out as a SOC because, it was too noisy, I don't want to see all of that? Or was it, this is too much work, I don't want to deal with all this work? Like, those are really uncomfortable questions to ask. So like that's like the level 1 challenge, change management. Level 2 is, how do we start to think about our detections in a democratized way? So how do I get everybody involved in writing detections, right? Everybody doesn't need to be in the SIM, and we need to be able to take the ability to author content and move it out to a broader audience. Now, one of the reasons that oftentimes organizations keep detection writing close in within their organization is because everybody has at some point been that person who writes the query that completely swamps the CPU and compute, right? And brings things down, okay? Yep. So when you move into...
I've been that person.
Yeah, I have too, I have too. Yeah. I mean, I still swamp, the SIM at work from time to time with terrible queries. What you do is if you have the ability to lint the code or run performance testing or things like that, there are things that happen in a normal software development lifecycle that we expect if you're a software developer, but we don't expect that of you because we don't tend to think of detection engineering, IR, SOC work as development work.
Yes.
But essentially, that is code, it's running on a platform.
Yeah,
okay?
You do all these other things in your SDLC.
Exactly.
How come you don't do it when you're deploying code on something as critical as a detection for security?
Exactly. So think about the most common problem we run into whenever we're writing code. It's the errant closure statement on the end of a line, right? Well, what happens in your SIM? Because a lot of SIMs you can feed a bad rule into your sim and hit save, and it's syntactically invalid, and it's not going to function properly, and you don't know it.
Yes.
So now, are you living in a situation where
I feel
there's
good.
there's bad stuff happening, and you don't know because you didn't close a logical, condition or operator on the end of a statement? That's, nobody wants to be in that situation, right? I mean, how would you like to be in the situation where you're sitting across the table from the CrowdStrike or the Mandiant who says, yeah, you would have detected this, but you didn't, right? So code linting, I mean, this is super common in every other discipline in coding, has to happen within the context of SIM rules, right? So we internally, wrote linting rules to make sure that the query language we use in our SIM, is syntactically correct. So if you commit code to the repository and then you put in a merge request, you walk through the same typical steps.
Goes through the pipeline and checks. And
right through the pipeline.
Essentially just like how you unit test, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And then of course we're looking for things like performance profiling, right? So a compute-intensive query isn't inherently bad, but you have to justify why you're doing it, because we're moving now in the SIM space to a place where a lot of SIMs are now running in the cloud as SaaS. Okay, so you may not be paying for ingestion costs, storage costs, capital costs of carrying a SIM, but what you are paying for is the compute, right? So you have to make sure that the rules you put in place aren't sloppy, that they don't consume more compute than they need to relative to the criticality of the thing you're trying to detect.
So back in the day, we didn't have to think about cost engineering because we ran these things on boxes, on premise.
Right.
And maybe our licensing structure was based off of ingestion and how much. Now, because everything's in the cloud, you can go big as you want. It's the CPU. So now we have to go back and almost do cost engineering like we would in application development when we host in the cloud. So that's something I think a lot of people don't really think about until they're there. Or
well, a lot of people don't think about cost engineering until your finance team shows up and starts doing cost engineering for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Which is kind of a bad place to be in.
No,
right?
you don't.
You want to think ahead of that. You actually want to think ahead of it during the contract signing, right?
You do.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, because your salesperson, they would love to see hockey stick growth in your
Exactly.
how you're using the product.
And it's so easy nowadays. So that is really cool. So the linter that you built, is that something that you guys released open source that you could possibly provide?
We're talking about it.
Okay.
So I don't know that we've done it
cool.
yet. It's it's specific to the SIM that we use. It might be a little specific to some of our use cases. So what goes along with detection as code isn't what we have is a larger schema for how we think about detections. So we don't simply just check in a single file that contains detection code in it. We actually constructed an entire YAML format that includes all of the metadata that should go around a detection. And so
Does that include like the payload it would have to read as like a test case?
Yep.
Okay. Kind of.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we also have some payload testing. I can talk about that in a second if you like. But essentially what we do is we have a YAML file that has name, description, associated MITRE attack techniques, guidance when an alert is generated on what you should do about that. It has cron style job scheduling, so you can just change job scheduling as a matter of code, and all those kinds of things. So that document itself is linted because obviously we need syntactically correct YAML, and then we're also linting the SIM specific code that goes into it.
That's so cool. That's really cool. And has this made your team better?
It absolutely has. So our very first test case was the dumbest of test cases, okay? So like a lot of places, we have different destinations for alerts depending on how critical they are. So there's a lot of informational stuff that just hits a shared mailbox and you can kind of keep an eye on it because it doesn't fall. We use some risk-based scoring. This doesn't even register, it's informational. So we had several hundred alerts that fell into that informational or diagnostic category that all went to this PDL, and somebody, as part of the organization, changed the name of the PDL. Now, think to yourself, I have 300 rules in my SIM that all contain a PDL name, and they're all bouncing right now, right? That poor level 1
yeah.
SOC person, or even worse, you do the all hands on deck, like let's all update the SIM rules. Like, yeah, that'd be a mess, right? You know what we did? We did a find and replace across our code base, checked in the code, deployed it, and we recovered from that in like 10 minutes.
It's awesome.
Yeah, right. And so like it was, like I said, that was like the dumbest reason to demonstrate the productivity gain you get out of it. But what it essentially allows us to do is, make writing detections easier, right?
And more consistent.
And more consistent, right. and things like that, right? Think about having a merge request, right? So now I don't have to worry about an analyst or an engineer who's newer to role committing some code that is, going to blow something up, right? Because the merge request that comes with using GitOps means that merge request has to be reviewed by somebody and approved and those kinds of things, right? So again, it goes back to change management overview. The overview drives, the kind of, mentoring and guidance that comes by pairing, junior and senior level people together. That means more people can write detections. You can also be in a place where you have some of your junior people who can get a detection out to about 80% of production quality, and then you can pass that work over to somebody else who knows some, organizational specific things or threat specific things, to add into that, and then that becomes a co-development and learning experience, right? And so the cumulative effect of doing all that means more people can write detections and be involved, so that folks that are there responding to threats also get the opportunity to say, you know what, I saw this thing, we don't have a detection, or the detection's not working well enough. I'm empowered to go do something about that now.
Now, if I'm like, Chris, this sounds freaking fantastic. Like, I want to implement this at my organization.
Yeah.
Where do they start?
Okay, so
you've been working on this for some time, and you guys have reached probably a state where, now you're care and feeding, and you got figured out. But like, from someone that's like, oh man, I struggle just to even get the SIM updated, with detection rules and stuff. But I would like to go in the path that you're going, so that I can have more reliable, consistent, and deploy faster and all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Audit trail. Where did they start?
So what I recommend doing, and again, I'm describing this looking back on 3 to 4 years of development work in this space.
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing I recommend doing is figuring out if you can synchronize your SIM rules just down to your local source code repository. Okay.
Good start. Yeah.
Yeah. So even if you still have to log into your SIM, make an update to something, and hit submit, at least you know that you're tracking it in your SCM, that you've got a version history on that detection, all those kinds of things.
Got it.
Right? Because like I said, there's 2 SIMs on the market that I'm aware of that can do detection as code. So odds are, if you're using the other 8, you're going to have to operate this way.
But it allows you to start with that.
Yeah.
The next step being the GitOps,
right.
The merge approvals and reviews, right?
Yep.
To move on to the next step, and then you have that whole change log.
Absolutely. So then the next step after that is when you start to do that type of inbound batch synchronization of rules, now what you can do is actually diff what's in your source code repository with what just came out of the SIM. And then you can answer the question, who the heck changed that without going and updating the code in Git? Right? So now
you have a little bit of accountability.
Yeah, you can drive some accountability, not necessarily in real time, but if you're doing a daily, a daily download batch cycle kind of thing to bring that code into your SCM, now you can at least have an exception process that said, oh no, it was an emergency. Casey had to go in and update that rule to stop something from breaking, and now we do it after the fact. That's great. You still have good accountability and audit trail.
Yeah, and it's not even accountability, I guess, too, right? What if I need to improve what was done there, right?
Yeah.
So I can then figure out who actually did it.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, those are some good concrete ways that you can kind of get started from there.
Okay.
And then the other thing is like, this is one of these places where AI can actually be helpful. Okay. AI, as we've done some initial testing, is good at creating syntactically correct statements and identifying errors in statements. Okay, so obviously standard disclaimers apply about the use of AI, organizational data, those kinds of things. But we're seeing some real promise there in being able to double check your rules and things like that, right? Me like everybody else, I'm out doing vibe coding now, right? I'm like, hey, I need to do this in JavaScript. Tell me how to do it. And then I go, but this part didn't work, and then this part didn't work, and then this part didn't work. And then through asking like 5 questions in a row out of an LLM, I've got really shitty but functional code. I'm sorry I swore on your podcast.
Yeah, it's fine.
Look, you can do the same thing with SIMs. A lot of the security tooling on the market, like the internal query language for that is actually known within AIs now. It actually works reasonably well for, dare I say, security vibe coding.
Well, and the funny thing is, I think that the title of this is going to be like vibe coding my way to detection engineering. I would click on that actually.
Just pair that with a really weird title cover too,
Yeah.
and that's instant gold on the algorithm.
We could probably keep going and going on this, but I'll just have to have you come in again and sit down for
Totally.
a longer time,
Yeah,
because
man.
I think there's a lot to unpack here that a lot of people could walk away with and be like, yeah, you're doing awesome work. Like, how could other people at other organizations apply that same awesome work, especially from a blue team and SOC mentality?
Absolutely, and again, end of the day, that's why we're here, right? We're here to engage. We're here to talk with people. I'm fortunate that I find myself working in what Wendy Nather calls that security 1%. So I get to work on challenging tomorrow problems, but as part of our larger commitment to the security community, we got to be out there sharing that and things like that and learning from each other, because there's a lot of organizations that are doing amazing things, and the more we talk, the better.
Exactly, right? Because if you're doing really awesome stuff and someone else is doing really awesome stuff, just, if we work together and share together and you take away some of those concepts, you're like, oh man, you're doing that? Oh,
Yeah.
what about this? What about everyone benefits?
Yeah, totally.
It's awesome. Well, thanks, Chris, for coming on.
Yeah, thanks, Casey.
Yeah.
All right, take care.